Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy Lewis with We Are Winter Garden, and we are joined by Pastor Scott, who is the founder, CEO, and president of Matthew's Hope, along with our lovely Shelley Bradford, who is the vice president and executive director of Matthew's Hope. Welcome to episode 31. Can you guys believe it? We're rolling.
Wow. That's awesome.
Of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, where we are going to be talking to Nicole Wilson, who is the current Orange County District 1 Commissioner, as well as Austin Arthur, who is currently running for that same position. So let's get started. We intend to ask each of them their ideas and plans for tackling the homelessness crisis here in Central Florida. If they even have an idea that there is a crisis,
Right.
Because sometimes people don't. So Scott, what are you hoping to hear from our guests today?
I think one thing I've shared with both Austin and Nicole is that I'm not looking for an aha moment. I'm not trying to catch you saying something that I can
No
drill you with.
gotchas.
Okay, no gotchas. That's not what we're here for.
No.
We are not. We don't edit this. We really just keep it going. Okay. So sometimes some of the things that come out of my mouth surprise people when they watch it.
But do they?
I don't. If they don't know me, they're surprised. If they know me, they're not surprised. They go, "There he goes. That's the Scott I know."
There he is.
Excuse me. But especially with the new law, it was House Bill 1365 that has now made it illegal to camp anywhere in the state of Florida come October 1st. I can tell you that when I was homeless and sleeping behind a dumpster or sleeping wherever I could, I was not camping.
Right.
Okay.
No marshmallows.
I just marshmallows, just trying to get a little rest to make it through the day, which gets really tough. I mean, I hear these guys every day say, "Scott, I'm so tired. I'm being trespassed over and over again." They're just exhausted. And lately it's been worse. It's almost like the cities and county, the municipalities that we deal in, which is roughly about 15 of them, have stepped up before this law is even go into effect. And so the question that I have for those existing in office and those who desire to serve in office is, where do you stand with this? What are you for? What are you against? I'm not here to say you're right or wrong, but I'll probably tell you you're wrong. But I'll try to do it as very lovingly as I can. But the other thing is I also know, and I've watched this over the years, is I've gone before Orange County Commission. I have met with several of our leaders, even Jerry Demings, that stuff over the years. And everybody's always looking at it, but nothing's really getting done.
No actions taken.
Right. And then someone who's trying to push something through gets blocked over and over again for the sake of the pretty people. And so that's it's like, what do we believe that all people are God's children? Do we believe that Amendment 8 stands on itself? And those type of things. And what I'm also trying to get people to understand is, as these laws get passed, if people think that it doesn't affect them, it'll not only affects them, but it's also not because the taxes, they're going to love the taxes they're going to have to pay. But also, when you start letting things like that go through, or letting people get arrested for a illegal use of a shopping cart, didn't even say he stole it, illegal use. So I mean, would he beat somebody to death with it? Okay. When you start to let that happen, what happens for the rest of us is you make it really simple for those type of bills being passed. So that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm sure we'll have more discussion with both of them.
Absolutely. Shelley, what about you? What are some things that you hope to hear from our guests today?
What's the plan? Over and over again, we've talked about how this is going to affect, our officers. It is going to affect our jail systems. And none of them are equipped for any of this. And so I really want to know, what's the plan? What's next? Because this has been put into place to do what? We're going to just arrest these people and give them more and more fines, more and more trouble. And how are we going to help them move forward if we're just going to keep them in this cycle over and over again? So what's the plan?
This will help keep them in that cycle.
Absolutely.
Not here is not an answer. It's not a plan. And I think that's something we have to come to terms with. And we have to, before we get into the next part of this, is understand, folks, this is an unfunded mandate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is being counties and cities are being forced to do some things from the state level, but doing so without any kind of funding.
Right.
Okay, so let's recognize
Or
that.
any plan to roll it out, really.
Yeah, no.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to hear from both of them in a minute. Shelley, we're going to swap you out with our first guest, so we'll see you in a little bit.
All right. Bye.
Joining us now is Austin Arthur. He is currently running to become the Orange County District 1 Commissioner. Thank you for being here, Austin. Before we dive into everything, tell a little bit about yourself.
Well, like you said, my name is Austin Arthur. I'm a resident of West Orange County, but specifically I live in downtown Winter Garden with my wife and 3 children. I think both of you know Kelly.
Golf cart
And
too.
we live in the golf cart district, and we do have a golf cart.
lucky,
It's very important for
Definitely
us.
the better half.
It's a big part of the family now.
Yeah.
But I've been here for 16 years. I'm originally from Miami and moved up here 16 years ago. Met my wife, Kelly, eventually, and we got married, and I'm never looking back. I just love this place. She's born and raised here in Winter Garden, so it's definitely home for her.
Nice.
But my brother and I, well, a little bit more of my background. I was, a long time ago, I was in a band, and that was what I was doing with my life. I told my dad it really wasn't working out, and I said, "Look, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur. That's what I want to do." And he said, "Well, son, that's real nice, but it's not a job. So you go ahead and get yourself a job now and act like a man." And so I did. I became a firefighter paramedic, and I did that, and I pursued business, my brother and I. So while I was doing that, we opened a marketing firm and had success with that. We opened Gymnastics USA. It's the biggest gymnastics center in the state of Florida now. It's right here, actually. And then, that gave me a lot of autonomy after a while once the businesses started to get more autonomous themselves. So I started to get involved in the community. I serve on several community boards: West Orange Habitat for Humanity, Challenge 22 to End Veteran Suicides, 8 Waves, right next to you, Lift Disability Network. Just a lot of good causes. And that got me in a place where I'm working a lot more with governance. And that's how I kind of got my eye on the county and felt we needed some changes there. And I started to ask people if they want to do it. And I told them the marketing firm would do everything for free for you. We just need some change in Orange County government. But the finger kept on getting pointed back to me. So here we are since February. Now that's last February, 2023, we've been running, and we're running hard and fast. We got a lot of great support from many mayors, and including Winter Garden's mayor here in West Orange and many others. So we're grateful. We're enjoying the process. It's a lot, but that's it. That's kind of me in a nutshell there. So.
Nice. And for those who don't understand what an Orange County Commissioner does, can you explain that a little bit just so we can get a grasp?
Sure. So a commissioner in Orange County really focuses on land use things, infrastructure, development, what kind of projects are coming in and whatnot. Also the county budget. So that's a huge thing. I mean, this is a huge budget. That is the commission that passes that budget. So that's everything you think of with government, your police, your fire, and everything else in between. Okay. That is funded by the budget, which is done by the commissioners. In addition to that, commissioners also are responsible for constituent services. So when any constituent, a citizen of our county has an issue, they go to their commissioner and try to seek help. In addition, it's also has the power of an ordinance, which is essentially a law. At the county level, we call them ordinances. So that is really a range of power, and it really is up to the commission what they decide can be a law. However, as I'm sure we'll talk about, sometimes the state will preempt things and overpower that. And so as a federal level as well. So you can't make laws that supersede state law or federal law. And with the federal law, we're talking about the Constitution, of course. The state, we're talking about different legislative things that they put into place. So, there's 6 board members on the commission serving different districts. I'm going to be representing, if I was to get elected, the west side of the county, kind of everything that's south and west of both Apopka and Ocoee. So, Hunters Creek, Horizon West, Windermere, Winter Garden, Oakland, Gotha, and, all those areas, Tildenville, Williamsburg. I can't forget any,
Right.
But it's a big zone. It's I don't think so.
So someone will drop you a nasty rank.
I'll drop it in the comments.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's
Cover
a
your
$250,000, almost about a 250,000 residents in the
Wow.
district. So it's a huge area to cover. So.
Okay. So let's kind of dive into what we're here for, and that's homelessness. And do you feel that people in this district, your District 1, do you feel that they are aware of a crisis that we have here? Are you aware of the crisis?
Yeah, well, to what extent, I'm sure, I'll continue to learn more to what extent, but I can say that I am aware. And I think that residents and citizens generally, I think everybody knows there's an issue, but you're right, to the level of the crisis, I don't know. I mean, I think that I was looking, and I think it's more 600,000 people are identified as homeless by some statistics in the country. And the state I read, it was somewhere around 30,000. And I don't think there's probably a real good way to make that metric. So if that's the metric they're giving, you can only imagine what the real numbers might be. They might be a tremendous amount more than that. So that's a factor right there. When you think of those numbers alone, knowing that there's really no way to get that proper count, so it must be so much more than that. You're already dealing with the crisis with those numbers alone. So there's more numbers. So I think that it's going to take more education. I mean, Matthew Soap obviously does a tremendous job at that, but also from the governmental level to make it more part of the conversation. And so to make people aware, because I think people think of homelessness, they think of what they see. And that's really not the case. There's so much going on behind the scenes that people don't see. We were riding in one of our municipalities, my wife and I recently, and there was an area that is normally very thick and forested, kind of little, maybe a couple few acres. And so we saw that they were clearing all the brushing and everything. And so it was just the trees left. And so my wife, she's smarter than me. She's a very smart person. She's like, it's probably because they are trying to identify a homelessness issue in there and they want them out of there. And I said, yeah, that's probably exactly what it is, so that there's a clear seeing. And what that tells us is that whenever you see brushes and trees and things like this where you can't see what's going on, you can only imagine that there's probably people behind there and probably families behind there, including young children. So when you talk about a crisis, I think that anytime you have, especially young children and situations like that, you have a crisis immediately, even if it's one kid. So it's not what we are always talking about, told, and it's people on drugs, it's people with mental health issues. Yeah. Obviously, that's part of it. Of course, it is.
Sure.
And then they say, well, a lot of those people want to be homeless.
That's my favorite.
But and does that mean that doesn't
so
exist?
Yeah,
I am. I'm breathing heavy.
You're doing good. And you are too. This is good.
But so those are a lot of the common things said. Yeah. That need to be talked about, because it doesn't mean that, is there no cases of that? Of course there's cases of that. Yeah. But that's not the only cases. And maybe it's not even the majority cases. So I think that's part of the conversation. That's why this is a great podcast you have going to create that conversation. And I think that's what's going to help create more awareness for the crisis that we do have, not just in Central Florida, not just in Florida, but in the entire country.
Absolutely.
You mentioned, if I may, you mentioned the count. Which is drastically off. Every year there's a point in time count. And the idea is, in a 24-hour period, they extended it a little bit now, but in a short period of time, to have volunteers that typically aren't involved with homelessness at all most of the time. They're just willing to go into the woods, which I always think is a wonderful idea. Send people that don't know what they're walking into. I have seen camps with veterans that are booby trapped and things like that. But you do this long enough, as I have for 20 years, you know what to look for. I've been homeless. Yeah. I know what to look for. But that point in time count, what's interesting is the number that they give for just Orange County, okay, is somewhere in their neighborhood. I think it was 2,500 this year. But here's the thing. If that's the case, then are they all here? Mm-hmm. Because Matthew's Hope, just our Orange County location, is having a 125 on average visits every Tuesday and Thursday, plus the other things we do, and our mobile team's going out. And we have registered just this year, we have registered, when I say this year, last 12 months, around 1,000 people. Okay, so my question always is, okay, first off, let's acknowledge the numbers aren't perfect.
Right.
But at the same time, let's talk about what that looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think the other is the fact that the misnomers, I mean, our fastest growing populations right now, homelessness, are seniors that have pensions that were not designed for this economy. So a spouse dies, and I've got 80-year-old women walking in first-time homeless because they can no longer stay in their home.
Not on drugs.
Yeah, not on drugs, They're just got broadsided by life.
They couldn't afford their mortgage.
Yeah. And then secondly is those with physical and mental disabilities. Now, I'm not talking about mental illness. That's a whole nother category. Right. I'm talking about folks that have been born with some type of physical or mental disability that requires a caregiver for their life. Mm-hmm. Used to be, not that long ago, 20 plus years ago, most of those folks were not living past their 30s. They are now, due to modern medicine, they're living to be 50, 60, 70 years old, sometimes older, but their caregiver died 20 years ago.
Right.
And so they get this $709 disability check, which they don't know how to handle money to begin with. And so they end up on our streets. And then what happens often is someone says, there's this drug addict going up. No, it's two things probably. It could be mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that they are mentally ill, but not in the same phase, or mentally disabled, which often mimics what addiction looks like.
Sure.
And the third is being that we have a homeless crisis, and young families are being pushed to the streets because they can't even, it's not whether they can pay the rent or not. They can't qualify because the property managers are requiring 3 times your rent as salary per month.
Right.
When you consider the average rent is $2,000 a month now for a 1-bedroom, that means you need to move in. You got first $6,000 plus your deposit for your electric, your water, all those other things you need. You probably got to buy
$10,000
furniture.
move-in.
Well, then, but see, even that you clear that hurdle, and then all of a sudden, you don't have a $72,000 income because that's what it would require.
Correct.
And if you look at the median income of this area, in fact, all of Florida, we're not even close.
And that's not even to consider the background checks that are necessary that disqualify a lot of people who are trying to get on the right track.
Yeah.
And the credit checks as well. People who have struggled in life, that have had incidents in their life. There's not a lot of atonement in the renting world for that. So, you have that on your background, it makes it even more difficult. So there's so many hurdles to it, and it just creates that cycle that is talked about. And I think that's where you need really foundational change to start to see a change for the better. So,
Austin, are you familiar with the anti-camping law?
Yeah.
And what is your reaction to that?
So my reaction might be different than other elected leaders. I think that the conversation is now, what do we do with this? How do we respond to this as elected officials? So if I was in the seat of
By
Orange County,
October 1st.
by October 1st, that's right. And I think enforcement by January 1st, 2025, that's when the teeth come in, is my understanding. So
enforcement goes October 1st. January, then it is going to allow where someone can sue.
Correct, right. The liability comes in. Yeah. So I think that, me, somebody that's seeking to be on the board of county commissioners, my entire focus when I was looking at this piece of legislation is, okay, how can the county handle this and react to this? For me, it's not time to complain about it. It's not time to wail about it as an elected official. That is for advocates to do. And as elected officials, now we work to the next step, because there's a session every year. So there's opportunities to get it modified. There's opportunities just to repeal it if it's not going to work. And that's where the elected officials step in. But so that's twofold. It's how do you respond to it? How, as elected official, how can we make this work in Orange County, if at all possible, to be at least harmful impact to the people that are living with homelessness? And secondarily, making a partnership mentality with those in Tallahassee, making this legislation as an elected official and not an adversarial one, because what's consistently happening in Orange County, it is consistently attacked by Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason for that, is because the elected officials in Orange County, in the aggregate, they don't have good relationships with the people that are controlling Tallahassee, not at all. Maybe a few here and there, but typically those few here and there are the minority in Tallahassee. So I really believe that if you want to see effective change in our county, I'm talking about our county, you need to start to change the narrative with these elected officials in Tallahassee, so that they listen to our county officials, so that they talk to us, that they want to work with us. If we continue, when you treat somebody like an enemy, they're going to react like an enemy.
Sure.
Yep.
So I think that's one of our biggest problems between county and state right now in Orange County, is we're consistently a target. And I think that a lot of times it's bad behavior on the county's part, on the elected officials' part. And it's not just, this is much more than the homeless issue. Sure. But it's a part of the bigger systemic problem with our elected officials right now in the aggregate. So I think that needs to change. And then we look at it. I mean, and I haven't looked at it. We could dive into it. I think that one of the biggest problems is funding was mentioned, that there would be funding, but there's nothing in the bill for that. So I don't know what the plan is, and if there is a plan, but it's especially going to be harmful for places like the town of Oakland, for example, just to use a municipality in our district as an example. I mean, they don't have the resources for that whatsoever. Right. I mean, they are a small town. So
And
there
we do
are
have
some.
homelessness in Oakland. I
Of
live in
course, there's
Oakland.
homelessness everywhere, as
Yeah.
you guys know. And that needs to be said too. It's not, oh, it's just a nice municipality. Oh,
Right.
Windermere, they're not going to have to worry about it. No, they're going to have to worry about
Oh, believe me,
Absolutely.
there's
Yeah.
homeless people in Windermere. They're just under a nicer set of trees.
it. Right.
We that's an area we cover,
Yeah.
seriously.
Yeah, no, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. So you're right.
Mhm.
Everybody's going to be affected. Every municipality. There is a clause in there if you have a financial, incapacity to do. But I think that's a statute definition, and I'm sure the threshold's hard. So that's the job of an elected official: is not to complain, is to work, is to highlight things, figure it out, talk to the legislators, talk to the person that pushed this bill forward. And not in a you're an evil person manner.
Right.
There's advocates that could do that if they feel necessary, but the elected officials, that's not their role. So I think that's the
And,
difference.
and he's right, absolutely right about that. And I always say that the other side of it is I'm just going to come from a little bit different angle. Is part of why we need folks serving in local government uh, advocating is because truth is I just spent a couple days up in Tallahassee 4 weeks ago before this was still it hadn't even passed the House and the Senate yet, and met with some of our elected officials that literally gave us this much time, and they mostly used it to tell us how wrong we are.
Mm.
In fact, they were very dismissive. I would never mention Randy Fine's name or or Tyler Cirrhosis. That would be inappropriate. Okay. But I sat with these people
Yeah.
and I'm going, and they're telling me what they're going to do. And my attitude is what they're I'm not electing someone for them to put their agenda out there. I'm electing someone to serve all the people
Correct.
equally, no matter what their race, income level is, whether they're homeless or not. That, and you are to represent what the people want.
Correct.
And I can assure you, the people. This is as a general statement. Don't want this.
Right.
Now, the folk that I call them sometimes the pretty people. Okay, there are people out there that are very vocal.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I tell people when people are disappointed with what we got for elected possibilities for president this year, which seems like most everybody's unhappy, which is kind of weird, except for the real hard left or real hard right, is the fact that only a small percentage of our communities are voting. So we're letting 15 to 20% of the big mouths run things.
Right.
And what I want to tell people all the time is the one power we still have as a people is to vote.
Absolutely.
Okay. But understand, don't vote on a single issue.
Right.
Understand what that person stands for. And I think we get too caught up. I mean, if somebody's
Yes.
just loving Matthew Soap, thinks we're wonderful and they want to help
Sure.
all, and sing Kumbaya and, all that fun stuff. Fantastic. However, if there's 9 things on your agenda that I don't agree with, I'm not supporting you just because you agree with me.
Right.
And unfortunately, we do a lot of that.
Yeah, totally true. Totally agree. And in the reverse aspect of that, also watch the elected officials, because you're right. Let's say you have an elected official that is a huge advocate for the item that you agree with, that you're for, but then you start to watch that elected official and they don't pay attention to anything else, and everything else is going to the wayside. So that's a big problem in government. It's a big problem in orange government right now. It's part of the reason I'm running. So I think that you need to make sure that you're continuing to watch them, not just on a single issue, but on all the issues. How are they performing across the board, and are they effective, and are they representing all the people in the aggregate? You're not going to be able to represent every single person on every single issue, but what you need to do, especially at the county level, is act as a liaison to the different stakeholders, the different people with different points of views, and not pick a side, and certainly not pit people against each other, because there's too much of that going on. They do it all the time in Washington, D.C. It's done in Tallahassee too. We don't need it in Orange County.
not
We got real
working.
problems that we need to solve. So I'm 100% with you on that one.
So, Austin, as commissioner, what would you do to address or partner or work, whatever you want to say, to address this homelessness crisis?
Well, I think first of all is that I'm not a subject expert on it, in identifying that. And I know that a lot of politicians love to think that they're subject experts on everything they talk about, but that's also a problem with government. So we need to identify our roles. That's why I go back to being a liaison. That's the role.
I don't want to say because you're going to love this. So when Charlene called out Randy Fine on Bill 1365,
Right.
he looked bewildered He's looking over towards his aide and he's checking his phone and he goes, now they've been trying to tell us all week long, this is not a homeless bill. Okay. And suddenly he pops up and he goes, oh, you mean the homeless bill?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Yeah, so-
there you go. If you don't even know the bill that you're backing,
Right.
to me, that's an issue.
Yeah, I think that you need to identify that you're not the subject expert. Your role is to be a liaison, is to be a representative of the voices of the people. And you need to find the subject experts and even the subject experts that disagree and work together with them as that liaison to understand the point. So that's number one. It's not just with homelessness, it's with every issue. So I would look to Matthew's Hope. I know that for a long time, you guys didn't take any government funding, which was an amazing thing. But I think it was a wise decision to go ahead and make that leap with Orange County recently and do the 900,000 plus, because that's where government needs to be. Government doesn't need to be in the business of solving all of the world's problems. Government needs to be in the business of partnering with private entities and not-for-profits to solve those problems with true experts in those issues. So I am for that. I am for partnering more with organizations, including Matthew's Hope, but also just understanding, having a concept. You cannot continue to just treat the symptoms. When I was a paramedic, this was taught to us very specifically. You don't treat the monitor, you treat the patient. If you're looking at the monitor and the person's got a 40 beats per minute heart rate, and you don't all of a sudden pull out the paddles and start doing CPR and thinking that the person's going down the tubes. You look, and when you see 24-year-old Michael Jordan, then you know what's going on. So you got to treat the patient. And that's the same thing here. You have to treat the cause, not the symptoms, because we spend too much time treating the symptoms. What is the cause? So it's early intervention, all these things. That's what we need to be focusing on, because that's what's going to make the real difference, the generational difference, the systemic difference. So that's my mindset going into it, relying on partners.
I think exactly what you said is we have blown through a ton of money as government treating the symptoms rather than looking for the cause. And I compare it to whenever I talk, and I think I probably have said it on here in the past, I compare it to when somebody sits in my office and I'm handing, their nose is running or something, so I'm handing them tissues like $100 bills. At some point, I need to ask myself, do they have a cold?
Sure,
Is
right?
it allergies?
Yeah.
Are they a cokehead like I was? I mean, what's going on here?
Right.
Because otherwise, treating the symptoms,
Right.
you really take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back every time you do it. And I've watched this happen over decades now, nationally, but at the local level as well.
Right.
I know that, you probably know this, Mayor Rusty Johnson is not a fan of me at all, and I'm not a fan of his, so it works out. Okay,
I'm friends with Rusty.
it's I know you are, but that's fine. But Rusty's been doing this kind of stuff.
I love you, Rusty. Don't worry.
That's fine. No, Rusty, he can love you all he wants. Okay, I don't hate you. I just am disappointed in you. Ocoee is one of the worst when it comes to homelessness, followed by Apopka. As far as they handle it, I can tell you that in Winter Garden, we've had a relationship. Often Winter Garden will call us before they trespass somebody and say, hey, Scott, can your team go out there and see if whatever's going on, if we can bring that to stop, because we really don't want to be arresting these people. Or, Scott, the property's getting ready to be developed. They just absolutely have to leave. And I'll usually say, can you ask the owner, the developer, can we have 14 days to get them moved along? This way they leave with their IDs and their belongings. There's a few things they have, their medications, because they got to find someplace else to go. If somebody told you to get out of your house today, okay, where would you go? Forget having friends and family.
Yeah.
Where would you go? And how would you do that? And so, this is a common thing that he and I disagree on big time, because I think a relationship with law enforcement, with groups, hey, if you don't like Matthew's Hope, find somebody else is doing. Oh, never mind. Nobody else is doing it. Okay. But all kidding aside, we're not asking for money.
Right.
All we're asking is some cooperation. Right. You don't have to like me, Rusty. We don't have to have a meal together or play golf. I don't even have to go to the same restaurants where I hear you talking about me. That said, I do believe this is bigger than us.
Right.
Whether it's Rusty, whether it's what the heck's his name in a pocket, Nelson. It's bigger than us, and we need to sit there and put ourselves aside and say,
It's
okay,
not about you guys,
how do we
it's about
address
people,
this?
How we help them.
Because you can't. First off, up until recently, being homeless was not a crime. It has now been made a crime. No matter what anybody wants to say about that, it's now been made a crime. And so arresting people, first, we're putting our law enforcement in a terrible position. Okay. I mean, my daughter's a police officer, and she hates this because she sees the problems with it from law enforcement standpoint. Secondly, though, is that when you look at all the other things that are involved, now that we've made it criminalized, again, how our prisons and jails are already overloaded.
Mm-hmm.
We release people on a daily basis with multiple hardcore felonies,
Right.
so we can make room for some guy who slept behind a tree. Because statistics prove that most crime by homeless people, no crime is petty. So I don't want to don't send me a nasty gram. Crime is crime. But these are petty crimes. These are shoplifting. These are typically trespassing. These are, like I said, in Ocoee a couple weeks ago, they arrested 2 different people, one with mental illness and the other one who was a 72-year-old man who was pushing a cart with his oxygen tank that we helped him get so he could breathe, and his waterproof case that he kept his medical records in. And he was arrested not for stealing the cart, illegal use of a shopping cart. If Rusty Johnson or anybody else could look me in the eye and tell me how that's okay, I'll back off.
Right.
Well, until then, I'm at full speed.
What I do know is that you mentioned the criminal justice system. It totally needs reform because of recidivism and the cycle that continues and continues, especially because it's almost impossible, like we mentioned earlier, for people to come out of that because of their record now, because of their record, not just the burden of having that criminal record on their background or just an arrest record. I mean, I have an arrest record and people love to talk about it that don't like me, but it doesn't mean that I'm not in a position to do good things in this world. But that seems to be how it's treated in our society quite often. So when you deal with people that have suffered through living with homelessness, it's very hard for them to get out of that, especially when they're getting arrested and now they have that record. And how are they going to get a job because they have the rest? How are they going to get an apartment?
Fine, you can't pay.
You can't pay it, so now you go into debt. So now you have a credit problem,
or they pick you up again because now you have a writ, and a warrant out for your arrest because you didn't make that payment.
Correct.
And we just keep on the cycle.
It's a total cycle. It's totally ridiculous. And it doesn't mean that I have the answer either. But it means that I identify that there's a problem and I'm willing to conversate about it.
Come to the table.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah. And that's the biggest issue I see is that it's more important for everybody to be right than it is to do what's right.
Right.
And doing what's right often is not popular with some of your biggest supporters. And should you be elected, you're going to find that out really, really quick.
Yeah.
The reason I look so tired right now is literally I slept 2 hours last night because I saw the latest rant on Rant Raised Reviews about what a horrible person I am. And, you sit there and go, and people bringing up stuff that, in fact, if you go to my Facebook page, Scott, what the heck is my Facebook page? I don't know. Just look up Scott Ballou, Bilue. I actually put a post last night that I did about 2:30 in the morning, literally laying out everything I've ever done, how my marriage was dissolved, how I dropped out of high school, my drug addiction, how I got there, being homeless as a kid, being here, dropping out of high school. I mean, went through this whole thing because I said, look, if those of you that think that is your business and think you shouldn't support Matthew's Hope because as one person said, just a shithole scumbag.
Wow.
Okay. And I'm going, have we ever met? Have we ever met? And so this is the kind of stuff that happens because if we live in this world right now, and I'm sure you know this, and being elected, you're going to find out even more, because oddly enough, my job is very similar in a lot of ways, is that those that are not with you feel they need to be against you. Where it used to be we could sit down and disagree with one another and respectfully. And that's how you mentioned earlier, what I've said to my girls growing up. I said, girls, I'm not going to tell you what to believe politically or religiously. Okay? I said, however, I want you to know what you believe, why you believe it, not because you saw it on TV. You watch CNN, I know which side you lean. If you watch Fox, I know which side you lean. Okay.
I watch Orange TV, by the way.
Yeah. Just for fun. But I said, I want you to be able, whatever you choose to believe, that you understand why you believe it and you're able to articulate it.
Yeah.
And I said, though I may disagree with you, I will respect you. And of course, as your dad, I'll always love you. but you may not. I always respect you if you're able to articulate yourself rather than throwing hand grenades over a brick wall.
Yeah, I think that comes from a very long time that we've, in this country, taught each other through generations. The golden rule of life is that don't talk about politics and religion among good company. That is probably one of the most corrosive things we've ever done. Then you throw in social media in the mix, the last two generations, and you really have a crisis on your hands there, because religion and politics are the two most important things in this world by far. You don't even have to be a man of religion to say that. It's just a fact. So you got to talk about them, because when you put up these walls, like you're not allowed to talk about it, it's taboo, then you don't know how to interact with people when they disagree.
Right.
So then you get behind the keyboard and you're just a warrior. Maybe you get 2 beers in and then you're really a warrior.
Yeah.
So it just creates a lot
Now
of
you can post
division.
anonymously, which is
And now you can
better.
post anonymously.
That's real. You know
So
what?
and so I think that it's a real cultural problem that we've had, and it's been going on for decades, and we're really hitting a pinnacle now, mixing in the social media aspect. So I think identifying that problem is very necessary.
Here's a fun thing I'll teach you before you go to the next question. Can I have your hand for a second?
My hand? Sure.
No. Okay. So most people throw hand grenades over a wall. You don't see them. I just want you to know that I just put a hand grenade in your hand. I've already pulled the pin. And as long as that's in you keep that finger down, you're going to be just fine. But my point being this, I won't say anything about someone that I won't say to their face.
Right.
And I believe that if you believe strongly in whatever it is you stand to, right or wrong, you should be able to say your name, look people in the eye, and what again, and unfortunately we don't do that. With social media, it's gotten worse to where literally you got people that don't post anything, but they post against everything.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So
That's exactly
yeah.
right.
So when you want to use a little hand grenade thing, come up with someone
That's
that you really
good.
don't like, just say,
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you something that Pastor Scott taught me one
Right.
time.
No, I like that. That's good.
And
So-
the good news, as long as you don't let go of that finger, you're going to be just fine.
So you mentioned developers and humans moving out of trees and whatnot. And we recently talked to a developer, and they legally were required to remove gopher tortoises, right?
Mhm.
Which costs tens to thousands of dollars to remove those tortoises to rehome them. However, there was also
I
a
know where this
camp
is
of
going.
humans. There was a camp of humans there, but there's nothing for them financially, physically, mentally for the humans. But the gopher
Yeah.
tortoises, they have all the finances in the world. So what do you think of that
Well,
when you first heard that? Because obviously you know that.
As a naturalist,
But like, to me, I was shocked. I was like, unbelievable.
let me just say, I'm what I call a preservationist. I'm, a member of
Mhm.
Fritz of Lake Apopka. I love the Oakland Nature Preserve. I think we should expand it. We need more of that in West Orange County and in the whole country. But with that said, I might say something that might not make me some fans, but I have always been, and anybody that knows me well have heard me say this, I'm a human first person. I believe humans first, always, always, always. And there's an analogy out there, and it's a tough one, but it will run the point home. If you have a human being and your dog in the lake, a human being and your dog in your lake, you don't know that human being. That's why it's just a human being, just a person. But this is your dog. They're both drowning. You can only save one. What are you going to do? And a lot of people, I think, unfortunately, will say they'll save their dog. But I think that that's immoral. I think that you need to save that human being, because human beings first. God created human beings to rule over this world. And that is a burden for human beings as well, a burden to protect the nature and to preserve the nature and treat those creatures with dignity, but humans first. So that's how I answer the question. It's a real shame. And but you also have to have intellectual, serious conversations. So when you break that down, what is that? Because now you're saying, okay, so people are on your property, but you didn't want them on your property. So now are they your responsibility financially? These are people that the retort would be, these are people that have the ability to not be on your property and know better. Not always the case, of course. But this is the conversation that actually has to be had, because now it's a property rights issue. These people shouldn't have been there in the first place, but it's a conversation that's not being had. And that's the problem.
Well, something interesting about this particular case, and it was actually in Orange County. It's a developer that's helping us build our transitional housing in Brevard County. They have a nonprofit called Porch Light, and this anytime they build something, They put money back in the community with someone like Matthew's Hope because they realized when they tore down that Winn-Dixie, though people weren't living in the Winn-Dixie, people were living behind the Winn-Dixie.
Right.
They realized they couldn't necessarily help those people, but what they could do is put their money where their mouth is and go out there and help places like us to help people get off the street.
Right.
But the most interesting thing about this also is it cost roughly $10,000 per tortoise. They found 2. Okay. The whole job shuts down. Okay. Because that's what happens. Because now they have to do a survey of the whole property, how many are there. And then they make the effort to get them moved and spend the money to make them move, which I've never had anything against a gopher tortoise my whole life.
I think it's just comparing.
I'd ride one if I could. I mean, I think it's cool as hell. Okay. But what I will also say, so the developer says, well, we're not actually building now. We know they're there. We don't care. Okay. And this was the response. Those people over there do. And unless you're going to tell us you're taking full responsibility of these people, we're going to have a problem.
Right.
Okay. And, I think that I'm not suggesting we don't spend money. Before you send me the nasty grams, just save yourself the time.
Do you get a lot of nasty grams?
Okay. Oh my God.
He does.
But if you read them, you'd realize just either I am the worst person on the planet, which I guess could be possible.
I think you just speak your mind, and
people are
some
uncomfortable with the
people
fact
feel
that I'll say what I
uncomfortable with
believe.
that,
But again, I won't say something about you that I won't say to you. And I would hope that would gain a certain amount of respect.
Absolutely.
Okay. You don't have to like what I say, but know that I'm not lying to you. But like this case, what bothered me is, again, it's wonderful that I'm with you. I lived in Oakland for 25 years.
Mhm.
I loved the nature preserve. I remember when it was first coming together.
Right.
I love this community, and that's why I started Matthew's Hope. And I realized that nobody was doing anything. But in this particular case in Orange County, what ended up happening is the fact that the homeless people are just say go.
It's a strange sense of
And
priority.
There seems to be,
Priorities
there
are
should be a
strange.
better, again, to me, not here is not a plan. That just means they move a little further down the street
Yeah.
and somebody catches up with them either hours or days later, not here. Okay. Well,
NIMBY mentality.
NIMBY, not my backyard. No, I use that lately all the time because it really is an NIMBY. And here's what I've told people. I mean, I was actually talking with the non-judicial court group last Monday, I think it was. And it was DCF was there and mental health folks and all this. They invited me to speak. We were there for 2 hours. And, one thing that keeps coming up, it's like, we recognize these problems. We're overloaded already. How is this going to make anything better?
Right.
Our police force is already stretched to the limit. Okay. And every time you arrest a homeless person, if you look at the cost, it's astonishing because you're going to feed them 9 meals. You're going to house them for 3 days.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
You take an officer off the road. He was here to serve and protect. What's he protecting us from with the homeless guy in the back seat? Now he's down at the 33rd in central booking to get the guy booked. The whole time he or she, the officer, is there, they're not where they need to be, and it costs a ton of money.
Correct.
And what's very interesting, if you take the time to read the statistics on the crime on any given day in the 2 areas that I cover, Orange County and Brevard County, is you're going to find that a large part of the people being arrested for crimes are being arrested as homeless people violating a trespass law or something along those lines, disproportionately, which is kind of crazy.
Right. Yeah. Things need to be to be discussed because it is a huge problem. I know that, for example, I was speaking. Well, the other problem is with Orange County. It's not like there's just a ton of money going around. I mean, we have a lot of problems.
That's a
in Orange County.
problem too.
We have a big infrastructure problem in Orange County, which everybody has identified very easily. So budget is a big issue. So how are we spending that money needs to be discussed. But it's also a real problem. Because speaking of this, like the sheriff's office of Orange County, I was listening to the other day at Hunters Creek. They were having a community meeting that I was watching in on, and he was talking about how they are even identifying themselves, not homeless advocates, saying we're seeing more and more. These are just people that just can't afford the rent. These are families, just regular people, and they're saying how much it's increasing. Just a regular
Everyday Joe.
ASO is seeing that it's just a regular guy. So it's such a problem, and the discussion needs to continue.
Definitely.
Well, I'm glad that I'm happy that you would want to have that discussion, because again, it's a discussion we've been trying to have for we're 14 years old.
Good.
And
Congratulations.
well, I don't know about that.
No,
People always
it's a
say
lot of good.
congratulate me all the time. Scott, your growth is just amazing. I'm going, you know what that means, right? We didn't grow just because we thought it'd be cool to have a medical
Oh, sure.
office or a hair salon. We did that because those weren't available to anybody. At the same time, the community, for the most part, has been super supportive.
Right.
You mentioned that the funding that we did with the grant with Orange County. The other part people need to know is that grant took about 9 months for us to negotiate.
Yeah.
From start to finish. And it was to get so it did not affect all the things that I'm not allowed to do in certain cases if I take that money.
Sure.
Okay. And it's very specifically funded for medical care and for us to identify homeless people and what their specific need is, mostly in the way of seniors, disabilities, mental health, family, what have you, so that we can try to, outside of our own 14 transitional homes,
Right.
Guide them towards possible housing for their specific need. The problem is HUD spending more money this year identifying them than actually has money to house them.
Mm.
And again, the problem is if you don't find a way to help them become independent, self-sufficient, which most of these people can with a guiding hand, there's not enough coal to keep that fire going.
Right.
So what are we going to do? And I'm not suggesting you have an answer, because I don't either.
Yeah.
Right.
But I know that if we don't bring it to the table, and we don't, if we are given more than 10 minutes of somebody's time and really look and ask them to look at the statistics,
Yeah.
okay, you got to look and see what the real truth is, because it's not the guy on the corner. In fact, guys I hear, they're panhandlers. 90% of those are homeless people. Those are running scams.
That's a total.
And the other thing is, think about this. If you could, now we pick people up from Apopka, Winter Garden, Oakland, Dr. Phillips, Ocoee, South Orlando. Did I miss any place? I probably did.
Put it in the comments.
But we will bring you in, or we have teams that go out to all those areas every other day that we're not bringing people in.
Right.
If we can offer that all ability to get those services, and you can't either get on our bus or walk your butt less than 1 mile for those services, your bleeding heart, if that's what you're doing, you are part of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
If doing the wrong thing for the right reason is still the wrong thing. And so what happens is that becomes the visual that everybody thinks homelessness is.
Right.
It's like everybody says, homelessness, they're all addicts. Alcohol. No. Or that's how they became homeless. No, I will tell you factually that homeless people didn't become homeless due to drugs or alcohol. Most of them became addicted to drugs and alcohol as a byproduct of their homelessness, because they started to self-medicate because they couldn't get the care and the services they need. I will tell you that 99% of these folks suffered some level of trauma, whether it was a loss of a child. I was molested as a kid. I was physically and mentally beaten. My sister turned out to be someone who's very angry at the world, and somehow I ended up on this side of it. But the point being is there's so much more tied to it that no one's talking about. We just make an assumption. If you ever get a chance to look at our latest stuff on Facebook, you'll see where we're showing before and afters. And the first comment, one of the guy down saw it, where he says, looks like a bunch of crackheads that just kind of get cleaned up. And my response to him was, not one of them, of the 20 pictures there, I think it was 16 pictures were there, not one of them was a crackhead ever. And one is an alcoholic, if that matters. Okay. But people are judging on what they see, not on what they know.
Yeah.
But what they see has now made them authority to spew crap on social media.
Yeah.
That's congratulations.
Well, Austin, thank you so much for being here. Scott, thank you as well. Is there anything you want to add or close in before
I
we?
just appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to sometime December being y'all's commissioner in West Orange County and working together with Matthew's Hope. And thank you.
I'll hold you that.
Hey,
We got it
believe
on.
me,
We
I know.
got it on
I've been in
video.
West Orange long enough.
Yeah, I got you on video now.
You don't need me on video. You hold
Yeah.
me accountable no matter what. I've been around here.
And for the record,
You know where to find
I've only been to jail once, and my charges never. I had my tail light, not my tail light, my license was suspended. Okay, it would end up being a problem with the system, not me. But the funniest part about it back then is I had really long hair.
No.
And I was a little more vain. But, when you're 32-inch waist with 48 chest, you're a little more vain than I am today. Now that I have all that is equaled out, I get ready. They're doing my mugshot down at 33rd. And like an idiot, I put my hands through my hair to fix my hair.
Oh, dude.
And I realized how stupid that was. And so my picture looks something like this. Okay? Because I'm like, what an idiot. They're booking you.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Just don't run for office. Most people won't see it.
Yeah. Well, Austin, I appreciate your time. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
It means a lot to me that we had the conversation.
Likewise.
And good luck to you. And look, if it happens, let's chat.
Okay.
And also know that it can't just be me and you either.
That's right. No, I totally agree. That's why I say stakeholders on all sides for every issue. I believe in that heavily. We need
Definitely.
more of it. So, thank you.
Welcome back, Shelley. You just heard our conversation with Austin. What stood out to you with that conversation?
So I took some notes
Okay.
because I didn't want to forget anything.
Perfect.
I really liked the way that he was immediately motivated to figure out how we could repeal this HB 1365. But I think that there needs to be some sort of change, of course, right? But I just think that this bill was passed so fast and that it's going to be so hard to execute it correctly. So I really like the fact that he wanted to look into possibly repealing it. Also, he wants to change the narrative of how we treat our homeless people, which I like that as well. And he said to stop looking at them like the enemy.
Because so many people do.
And then another thing I liked is that he said he's not the subject expert and that he wants to look to people like us who are the experts to help execute whatever is next. I like that as well.
Did anything that he said concern you at all?
No, not really, because he stuck on. I felt like he was trying to feed into what we were talking about to make it positive for what we were talking about.
Right.
So nothing really. I'm like, no.
So it seems like there's hope there.
Yeah.
That there could be steps to take to partner,
I mean, I
with
think
people.
if he is elected the commissioner for Orange County, for West Orange area and what have you, is that if he can keep his head in this space, not just on
Right.
homelessness,
Of course.
but how he approach that, the challenge is that it's real easy to go out, shake hands, and kiss babies.
Sure.
I do it every day. I mean, I really do. I'm campaigning every day for the last 20 years. And there's a big difference of having the time to go out and see everybody and then being faced with the reality of the job itself.
Yeah.
And I think it's lost sometimes. And I'm not saying this towards Austin. I'm saying in
course.
general, because I know that talking to other friends I have and acquaintances and partners I have in government, the challenge they talk about it all the time is because of the way things are, we're not making any movement. And nobody's teaching you where the dead bodies are buried, what's going
Right,
on. So you're
right.
2 years into office before you even know what's going on.
Right.
So I that is concern that we get caught up, lose another 2 years,
Right.
which has nothing to do with how good or bad Austin could be.
And then,
It's dealing with that reality.
right. And then, like you're saying, those 2 years are lost and moving forward. We're not moving forward. We're stalled.
Scott, was there anything that you heard from Austin that you would like to touch on or react to before we close?
No, I think Shelley, she nailed it. I mean, she was able to sit here and listen in very clearly and make her notes. Like I said, I think that there's going to be if he's elected, there's a reality that's going to hit him pretty quick. The photo ops opportunities go away, and now you're under the microscope.
And the
I've
real
been
work
living
begins.
that
Yes.
microscope
Yeah.
for years now.
Right.
And it's very similar, and you're judged constantly, good or bad, whether you did something good or bad, because we basically operate anymore is on opinions of people rather than what facts are.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And people need to be willing to, whether it's listen to our podcast, do research on their own, what have you, need to educate themselves on what the truths are, not by what we think we saw, but
Right.
by what we know.
Love that.
And I do like the fact that he said, I'm not the expert,
Yes.
but I want to sit down.
I'm willing to learn.
Okay.
Mhm.
Shelley, do you want to add anything before we close?
I guess the last thing that I want to say is I really like the fact, because we do know that he's real active with the nature preserve and things like that. And one of the big things we're talking about right now is, I'm trying not to touch the table, is the gopher tortoise, and how that's kind of being brought to light about how ridiculous it is that a tortoise is more important than a human being.
Tortoise gets 10,000 to relocate where a human's
Right.
just pushed.
Right.
And
One thing that wasn't said in this that maybe we forgot that it was said, but it's stuck to me a lot, is that not only do they have to leave, if they don't leave, they're going to be fined. Not
It's good that you brought that
the
up.
homeless people. The people who are trying to develop on this property, they're going to be fined if they don't move this
So they're
homeless
stuck
person.
in a corner.
That's
Yeah,
so ridiculous to me.
All right.
I do want to throw this out
Yeah.
before we close on this too, is that I want people to understand too, this, I'm not against environmentalists and things like that.
Sure.
I think it's important. I don't think we care enough for the planet God gave us.
Mhm.
That said, when it preempts the ability to care for human beings,
Right.
that's the challenge. So I'm not taking a shot at people who want to save the.
Sure.
I want to save the gopher tortoise.
Absolutely.
You know, we're not. The gopher tortoise is not the enemy. I'm just simply saying that we need to at least give equal
Right.
attention to human beings.
I think human beings should be treated better
I do, but I'm trying to set the
Human-
bar low
human
because
beings should
maybe we'll
be
meet the expectations.
above an animal.
I do too, and I do like how he said that too.
Yeah.
Humans first.
Well, thank you guys both. Thank you, Austin, for being on. Tune in next week for part 2, because we will be interviewing Nicole, who is our current commissioner. Please like, subscribe, share, all of the good things. Comment if you have a topic that you'd like to talk about, or you have a question for Shelley and Pastor Scott. Please reach out. They're open and willing to talk and educate and learn. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.